Reef Quiz number 3, coral skeletal production. We share 20 questions and answers from our 52S2 Live. Can you beat the community and Jason? But more importantly, how much progress is the hobby leaving on the table? All right, you're on the hot seat now.
I'm on the hot seat now.
Are you ready to do quizzes?
I don't think so, man.
Back from break? I'm ready.
I don't have enough caffeine in my system yet.
Okay, well,
we're working on it.
You're a smart guy, man. So those of you who don't know, Josh manages all the behind the scenes of BRStv. He's installing all of the BRS 160 tanks, the 52 weeks of reefing tanks. There's like 8 of them. Me, him, and the rest of the team, man, are executing on that plan. But he has a lot of the maintenance reports to you, or all of it, really.
All of them.
And so, like you get to see a little bit of the magic behind the show.
Absolutely. Right? And considering I learned about reefing from BRStv, it's pretty cool to actually see us all come together, because 52 weeks of reefing was when I actually really got into the hobby. So it's cool watching it all come together in real time.
You know what's funny is people would think about it this way, but I learned from 52 weeks of reefing.
Yeah.
The process of doing it. You know, like I take all the things we know, and then we apply it, and then we learn.
Absolutely.
You know, we learn it together. So, thank you for watching. It allows me to learn.
Absolutely.
Okay, which is the predominant form of alkalinity that the corals use? Bicarbonate, which is HCO3, or carbonate, which is CO3.
I am going to have to say carbonate CO3.
Okay. All right. And about 38% of the people or 35 would agree with you. Now, I will caveat this that, like, science and biology on this is what we believe to be true. But I would say that a vast majority of biologists would believe that they're actually utilizing the bicarbonate, right, as the predominant form of alkalinity. And part of the reason of that is in most tanks, bicarbonate is 90% of what's in the water.
That is true. I am forgetting some basic stuff here today.
Okay.
It's the caffeine.
Well, you know what though? Like way back when like Dave and I produced the first video on this, because you're providing like calcium chloride, calcium, and then sodium bicarbonate or carbonate. So if you provide, combine the carbonate and the calcium, there's calcium chloride. There's no like combining bicarbonate and calcium. Like it doesn't, like science doesn't work that way, but it does actually work that way. So the part of the reason of that is just there's so much more bicarbonate, and the pH is the difference. The pH will change this a little bit. But what happens, and this is the important part to remember, and this is where if you get these little bits, it will build on itself throughout this video, or this hour rather. Yeah. Is the only difference here is carbonate is carbon O3. So a carbonate with an oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. Yep. That's all it is, right? Absolutely. A bicarbonate's the same thing. A carbon with an oxygen, 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 and a little hydrogen sitting there hanging, dangling off the edge, right? Okay. So what happens is the coral actually just splits off that hydrogen in its tissue and then utilizes the carbonate and calcium to build calcium carbonate, its own skeletal structure. There's that little leftover hydrogen, ionic hydrogen living in there. What is pH? The concentration of hydrogen ions, a measure of how acidic the water is, how fast calcifying corals grow, or all of the above.
I'm going to go with the concentration of hydrogen ions. Okay.
And nobody would say how fast the corals would grow. And a measure of how acidic the water is 46. And I'm going to say roughly all of the above here, right?
That's fair, because it does measure the acidity.
There's some caveats in here, though. Like, it's not really how acidic the water is, even though the hobby uses it. Like it's like above 7, it's how basic the water is. Yep. And below 7, it's how acidic the water. But as we talk about it and understand it, the farther you go below 8.3, saying it's getting more acidic, well, not like scientifically correct, I think is correct enough for the application that it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you could say better and less basic. but maybe that's the way we should go in the future. I just don't think you're train wreck the conversation for so many people. Okay.
Agreed.
But it's true. pH is going to tell you it's less basic or more acidic, depending on how correct you want to be. It's also going to tell you the concentration of hydrogen ions. So really kind of like it's giving you, like the more acidic the water is, the more hydrogen ions are in the water.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it is definitely giving you that. But indirectly, the higher the pH, the faster the corals will grow. For sure.
That is very true. Once
Yeah.
you get up to that 8.3 and you get it pegged there, you're going to see your stonies really take off.
It's true in our core tanks. It's true in the ocean. It's just true. Any marine biologist that you would ever meet would universally all tell you that it is true that corals will calcify way, way, way faster at 8.3 than 7.8.
Absolutely.
In fact, at 7.8, it might even be eating a whole porous structure in its own skeletal structure.
Absolutely can.
Yes. And so I would say all of the above with a couple of caveats in there, but hopefully you learned something new along the way there. What is low pH called in the ocean? Ocean acidification, ocean carbonization, or not real?
I will say, based off of the way we in the hobby read the pH scale, I will say ocean acidification.
Okay. All right. You would select ocean acidification, and 65% of people would say you are correct, and they are.
All right.
This is actually an interesting point, man, because science calls it ocean acidification, but it's actually less basic.
Yeah.
They're violating their own terms here, which is an interesting point. But that is commonly referred to. So if you go read about what happens in the ocean, we are putting more carbon dioxide in the air. It's just real. You can measure it. Sometimes things like what humans do to the Earth are debatable, and everybody has an opinion on temperature and stuff. But there are other things where it's just no, we're definitely putting more carbon dioxide. It's measurable. It's definitely in the ocean. The ocean is the carbon dioxide sink for the planet.
Absolutely.
And we've measured what happens to all of the corals. And every marine biologist, when I say every, I mean 100 out of 100 would tell you that the pH of the ocean in most reefs is going down. Yep. And the effects of that is porous structure, increased bleaching, brittle, stands
Very
up
brittle,
to storms. They don't grow as well.
Just sick.
Okay. Also, what we found in all of our experiments in our tank. So what happens in the wild actually happens in the experiments in our homes as well.
Oh yeah. You can definitely tell the difference in an SPS tank. That's some of our tanks here at 7.8. Some of those branches are very easy to break off. Mm-hmm. But you see a tank that's at 8.3 and that's pegged and it's pretty dang constant, really thick, very hard to break off and frac.
So there's a bunch of things in the atmosphere that we put carbon dioxide into the world. It's just part of the universe.
Yeah.
But also in our home, it's the same thing. We'll see it all over the place. The more people breathing, the more concentrated carbon dioxide is in a house, the lower the pH goes in the tank. And then, as simple as opening up a window solves it.
Absolutely. I remember the first time I did that was actually from one of your videos where you talk about opening up a window, and I did it myself, and I was just, watch my Reef Keeper pH just right where it needs to be.
The first place I encountered this was a local friend of mine does tank installs.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, and then for whatever reason, this tank at this Latin restaurant just kept crashing all the time.
Oh, okay.
Right? And he just couldn't get the tank to not crash. And then he put on actually the Apex 2, the super ancient one.
Really old
on there.
Controller,
He's trying to figure out what's going on. And it turned out that they would have after-hour parties at this place. And so they pack 200 people in there after hours, sucking up all the oxygen, breathing all the CO2. the pH would just what is happening on Friday and Saturday night at 2 a.m. man? The pH is suddenly hitting a 7.2. What is going on? Turns out a lot of people are having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of having some fresh air in there. That's all you need.
That was my first experience with it. I would go on to find many. We have it here. pH no problem on the weekends at BRS. During the week, super big problem.
Very.
There's 200 people or 100 people here.
Yeah.
How many times more acidic is a pH of 7.4 than a pH of 8.4? And again, for the super nerds, like how much less basic would it be? But for the purposes of reefing, we usually say acidic. How much different is it? Is it 0.1 times, 1 time, 10 times, or 100 times?
I hope I'm not oversimplifying it. I'm also hoping none of the teachers that I had in high school were watching, but 10.
All right.
What do the rest of the people think?
Most of the people thought it was 46, thought it was 100 times. The correct answer is actually 10 times.
Okay. All right.
So it's like a logarithmic scale or something.
Well,
it's like
any
10
wild
times.
teachers watching, you can stay tuned.
Each point is actually 10 times. So 10 times means there are 10 times as much hydrogen in the water.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That it's trying to get rid of the coral in this case. You'll learn about that a little bit more. But like it's a pretty big difference, you know, the amount of extra hydrogen that's in there. And the scale isn't like perfect, but I read, I did use a calculator the other day, and I was like, well, what's the difference then between 8.3 and 7.8? And I'd presume that it would be 5 times then. The calculator spit out like 3.8 times, but in any case, it's like the difference between those two things is nominal.
Okay.
If I had 3.8 times as many of these little hydrogens in the water, creating more carbon dioxide, it's a problem for me.
Sure.
Right? Okay. Or a carbonic acid is what it would create.
Right.
So those things attach to carbon dioxide. What would Ryan tell you are the best levels?
Okay.
Right? Which doesn't mean it's the best levels. What would I tell you? If you watched enough of this, you would know. 7 DKH, 420 calcium, 1280 magnesium. Option B, 9 DKH, 450, 1350. Option C, 11, 480, 1390, or anything stable.
Another gimme. So I think most of the community would agree, anything stable.
Okay, I can't wait to see. You're going to select anything stable, and it would come across as, I'm so happy that the community knows you're wrong.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah. Okay, anything stable is not a bad answer, right? But you're asking, the question here is, what would I recommend? Okay, that would come in second.
Sure, okay.
But I would actually tell you that 9 DKH, 450 calcium, and 1350 magnesium. And this is why. You are roughly 20% away from danger in every direction.
Okay.
You know, depending on each one. These are
I can agree
not
with
20% that magnesium or anything. But like DKH, 7 is safe. You know what? 11 is safe. It's got, you know, different things are going on at 11, but it's safe. Run tanks that. And 9 gives us buffer, meaning like my dosing container ran dry, right? I got buffer. My test kit sucked. I got buffer. I performed the test kit wrong. I got buffer. I haven't been testing enough. I got buffer.
There you go.
Right? The corals grew, and I just didn't know it because I like turned up my lights, you know, and I tuned my lights perfect because I listened to this thing. And then I didn't go test the alkalinity I was supposed to, and it starts sucking up more alkalinity because the tank's doing so great. I've got buffer, you know? Okay, so that's the thing, is I just want to be away from danger. And so 9 DKH keeps me away from danger, 450 keeps me away from danger, 1350 keeps me away from danger. Right after that, I would say anything stable.
But I will say, when I saw the poll, approximately 40% of you all also thought anything stable.
Yes.
So we're similar thought process.
Most of the other people, though, actually got the middle one. And I wonder if it was for the same reason. Share if it is the same reason.
Okay.
Because I have never met anybody who has like definitively said these are the perfect numbers. The corals will grow better at this. There'll be some anecdotal things along the way that I may or may not have found. You know, I will tell you for sure we found faster growth as you raise the levels up. That's not debatable. But it will pose other challenges that you'll learn along the way here. But like my thing is, I want to embrace the inevitable. My containers will run dry and I will not notice at some point. I will test wrong. It will happen, you know? Like my dosing pump will overdose someday a little bit or underdose. My corals will grow and I won't notice.
Yep.
Embrace the inevitable, have a plan for it, and you'll be more successful.
Right.
Yeah, so there we go. Okay, in our experiments, how much did elevated levels increase growth? Nothing meaningful, 35%, or nothing meaningful, it didn't increase it at all. or 35% average and 163% maximum, because we tested a bunch of different types of corals. Some of them grow faster and respond to this better than others. 70% and 213 max, 105% and 263 max. Which of these produce that higher level of alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, produce better results in our experiments?
See, this one's tricky, because so if I could switch salt as an example or increase my levels to get 35% more growth, I'd definitely do that. I'm leaning towards nothing meaningful, but there has to be some difference, so I'm sticking with 35%.
Okay, you're going with 35%, all right? And the community would agree with you.
Okay.
At 55%, or 56% are saying that. Okay. The real result was 70% growth.
No kidding, huh?
70%, man. And that's compounding. That's just those months. Because now that 70% extra, we'll grow 70% on that.
Right.
And anybody who is putting money in their 401k knows the result of that over time, right? And so sometimes you might ask a question, like, how come Jerry filled out his tank in 18 months and it took me 5 years?
Jerry's got higher levels.
Now, that might not be the only answer, but it is a answer, right? Okay, and notice the 213% maximum. Some of these corals actually grew 200% faster.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
We're doing it visually, but like you could see it visually, but we also measured it in grams.
Okay.
Took the corals out and actually weighed them. Okay, so one of the questions though is well, then why doesn't everybody run their levels at 13 DKH and 490 calcium and all that stuff?
Sure.
My answer is the same one I had before, which is I want to be 20% away from danger. I know my test kit's going to get jacked. I know I'm going to over or underdose at some point in time in the upcoming years. I want to be as far away from danger as I can possibly be. And so if I'm riding the razor's edge there, I'm riding the razor's edge. There are results with that.
So a good way to go about it then would be to elevate, just not too high.
Yeah, that'd be the 9, because natural seawater is 7.
Right.
Right? So I'm splitting the difference. I'm not getting all the benefits, but I'm getting a lot of the safety.
Okay.
Right? And so one of the things we talk about a lot is people talk about the best path. Well, the best, if your goal is I want to grow as fast as possible, and I'm going to stay 2 in the tank, that may very well be the best path.
Sure.
Okay. I often think about this as the highest percentage path with good to great results, not perfect results.
Okay.
But good to great and high percentage, meaning if people followed this counsel, 90% of them would achieve the goal that they're looking for. Because I think that's what most people are actually asking when they're asking these questions. They're not actually asking, how do I squeak out the last 10% of growth at great risk?
Right.
It's
not worth it.
No, that would be silly. True or false? Most of the test samples showed better coloration at elevated levels as well. So when I raise up the calcium and alkalinity, I got better coloration. True or false?
I'm going to sound like a skeptic because I feel like maybe these are trick questions. I'm going to say it's false because of our conversation earlier around essential amino acids and whatnot.
Okay, so false. 22% or 20% said false.
Okay.
Right? Let's change it a little bit. 26.
Okay.
Okay. If you had asked me what the outcome of this was beforehand, if I raised up calcium and alkalinity levels, would I get better coloration out of the coral? I would give you a hard no. That doesn't seem like that would happen. Just my cursory knowledge in the biology, I'm matching seawater, why would elevated level? I don't know what to tell you. I can't give you the mechanism for it, but the coloration in the corals was dramatically better at higher levels.
Okay. So higher levels, I get better growth, better color.
Yeah, you're just serving biology. So one of the thought processes, this is one of those areas where everybody wants to match natural seawater. That must be bad.
Sure.
There are ways to improve on biology better than nature provided it.
Okay.
You see it in all kinds of, there are people that are healthier than others. You can improve on biology in a whole variety of ways. It isn't just what's based on, for instance, people who live at really high altitudes just don't live as long as people who live at low altitudes. It's been proven. It's because there's less oxygen, right? And so I can just increase the oxygen levels. It doesn't matter that you grew up there. I can increase it, and we can increase the lifespan.
Right.
It's just that easy. So similar effects here. So if you go back and watch that episode, there was no question, man. And especially, this is one of those things where you really got to take pictures before you test something and then take pictures afterward, because your memory will not remember it the same.
That is such a good point. You won't see it.
And I can tell you that because 9 times out of 10, I will walk up to it and say, I don't know, that wasn't that big of a change. And then we'll go watch the video time lapse and they're like, what the hell? Like, that was so much better. How could we have not seen that?
Yep.
Right? And it's dramatic. It's so different. It just looks like a healthier animal, the coral.
Yep.
Yeah. In a high alkalinity calcium tank, what becomes more important? Flow, 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 or flow?
Flow.
No way.
I got it.
I'm pretty certain
What did they
that you'll
say?
get it. Well, which flow is it though? One, A, B, C, or D?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to say the community chose the first one, top flow. Let's see.
Let's see. The community did choose the first one.
All right, so I'm double right.
Bravo.
That counts as 2. That makes up to the 50% average.
Okay, so this is one of those things where, if you're going to ride the razor's edge of biology with elevated elements, you've got to ride the razor's edge of everything. You can't just do one thing exceptionally well. You have to do it all well. Because now I am splitting off tons and tons of the little hydrogens off the bicarbonate. I need flow to get rid of that. Right now, the pH inside the tissue is building up as it's building up all those little hydrogens, and it's creating more carbonic acid inside of the tissue. Because it's creating that acid, it's building or could burn holes inside of the calcium carbonate structure. Okay. I need that flow to provide that gas exchange through the tissue. I need to increase the flow. I need to be able to increase the flow to provide more nutrients. I need to do everything in there. Like, you may even want to adjust lighting, to fit this, because I need more energy as well. And so, like, when you ride the razor's edge, you got to understand that it isn't just one thing. Like, you don't tune your race car by like just adding more fuel. You've got to add more oxygen in there to create combustion engine. And then even when I do that and I get 800 horsepower, it's useless, man, if I don't have like new giant carbon disc brakes. It's useless, man, if I haven't installed better suspension. I'm just going to crash.
Sure.
Right? This is the same thing. When you ride the razor's edge and you go all the way to like 13 DKH, know that like you're like, look around and like some people do this really well and have no problems and some people don't. Look at how they're approaching it. Am I just doing one thing well, or am I realizing, man, that I am pushing biology to the edge and I've got to take it from all angles?
Yeah, that's a good point. So don't just focus on one, basically.
Yeah, but the good news thing here is anybody out there, most of the people who are watching this are like, I am a trailblazer. I like to ride the razor's edge. Like, they want to know the information. They want to know, how do I achieve this correctly? And then it makes sense. I need to do all of these things well if I want to.
Right.
Now, the other thing is true too. If I hit it in the middle, well, now I only need to do all of these things like reasonably good.
Okay.
I don't have to be perfect on all fronts, And so part of that is the equation in this. In our experiments, how much did natural pH levels increase growth? 15, 30, 45, or 60%?
So I learned a lot about the last question when we talked about elevated levels. So I'm going to go with 30%.
So I'm going to repeat this for everybody watching. In our experiments, because we did a pH experiment.
Oh,
natural pH being like an 8.3.
Yep.
Right? And then we had 7.8 as the control. How much did the pH levels increase growth? 15, 30, 45, or 60%?
Can I change my answer?
You could.
I could?
Yep.
Sounds like I shouldn't. I'm going to lean towards, let's just do 45.
Okay.
I might regret it. 45.
Okay. You would say 45, and that'd be 20. This is like even, man, across the board, man. 1/4. Okay. You would have been right at 30%.
Okay.
Right? At 30%, we found increased growth. This is, again, the compounding thing. If you have a 401k, you understand the effects of compound interest. This is compound growth. Every period of time, you get this extra. I know it's over a period of a couple of months.
Okay.
Okay, so 30%. I will say I really want to repeat this one because we've learned a lot about how to perform these experiments. And the reality is when you take a bunch of corals and you put them into these like brand new tanks, you run into some challenges. And we ran into a couple of challenges in one of the sets of the AB tanks. And then we also found some corals that grew way faster and some that didn't. I'd like to take that knowledge and apply it to a new experiment and understand pH even more. But 30%, man, by increasing the pH was pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's not bad. For like something as simple as CO2 canister, or if your home is set up in the way that you can just run a line outside.
Yeah, not a CO2 canister, but like running a refugium, putting a line on your skimmer.
Even that, right.
Using some
There's a bunch
CO2
of ways
media.
to do it.
Okay, so if you have a ton of coral, man, like CO2 media, you're going to burn through, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 bucks of this a month.
Sure.
But like, dude, if I got, $4,000 in coral and I want the thing to like turn out inside, if I wanted to do it instead of like 5 years, I wanted to do it. I mean, if I could combine a bunch of things and do this inside of, 2 years, that's worth it to me.
Right.
Okay. Which of these is the most accurate statement about a reef tank? 8.3 pH results in 31% more growth. A 7.8 pH results in 24% less growth. Which is the most accurate statement?
So I have to go back to the last question. I feel like I'm prepared for this. It's 8.3 is 31% more growth.
Okay, we'll select that. 72% of people would agree with you.
Okay,
or
so
76
they're watching.
and
They're
growing.
watching and paying attention. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the reason, because they're basically the same thing. It's just like the percentage just changed a little bit because of the way you're going up or down, right?
Sure.
But the difference in the question here is actually hidden in like, what is your baseline? Because like, you know what? Actually, I got the answer wrong. I'm sorry. The answer is actually, which is the most accurate statement, is 7.8 results in 24% in a reef tank, 24% less growth. Why would it be that way?
I don't know. It sounds like me and the community got it wrong.
Yes. Okay. The reason why is because 8.3 is the baseline. So it doesn't make any sense to say, hey, if I had 8.3, I'd get 30% more growth, because 8.3 is nature. That's the biology, like the baseline that the biology is mastered around. Okay. But if I got 7.8, which is lower than nature, and I got 24% less growth, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Right? We're nitpicking here, but the reason that I did this question this way is because if I worded it like, hey man, if you went and raised the pH up, you could get 24% growth, maybe some better coloration, you would get less brittle skeletal structure. Some people would go out there and say, oh, I want to achieve that for my tank.
Mm-hmm.
But what if I were to say something different, which is, hey, if you let your pH fall to 7.8, you're going to harm the biology of the animal to the point that it calcifies 24% slower. It gets a brittle, porous skeleton because the acid in there, the carbonic acid, is eating holes through the already created skeleton. It's more susceptible to bleaching.
It's a little more convincing.
I want to fix that more than I want bonus growth.
Sure.
Right? So this is one of the things I'm seeing more and more often, like in the community, which is I'm building a pH first tank.
Okay.
My tank is designed around managing pH.
Sure.
And like that is partly why, is because I want healthy biology of the animal. I'm not building to like some theoretical growth pattern, which is about me. I'm building this about providing for the animal the trust for me to do that.
Right.
Which of these will increase the pH more per DKH? So if I added 1 DKH of any alkalinity additive, which one of these would increase the pH more? Sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, sodium hydroxide, or all the same?
Okay, without giving too much away, it's got to be between carbonate and hydroxide. I'm gonna go with hydroxide.
You're going with hydroxide?
No, I'm not. All right, I won't change it again because I already tried to change once, but I changed my answer.
The community would say sodium bicarbonate will raise the pH the most. Oh, no, it switched to hydroxide. Oh, it's battling.
Okay.
Right? Which is interesting because sodium carbonate is one is like losing in the middle there. These are actually listed in order, right? So sodium bicarbonate will have almost no effect on the pH. In fact, it will actually decrease the pH just a little bit temporarily. Like not enough to actually have a long conversation about, but just a little bit temporarily. Sodium carbonate, which is soda ash, that's the one that like a vast majority of people are using nowadays, and it raises the pH to a significant degree. Okay, sodium hydroxide, which is lye, by the way, That one will raise the pH twice as much as sodium carbonate or soda ash, twice as much. Which means also, by the way, calcium hydroxide, which is what?
No.
Yep, you're right.
Kalkwasser.
Kalkwasser.
Okay.
Kalkwasser, so calcium hydroxide, will also raise the pH per DKH twice as much as sodium carbonate or soda ash will.
Interesting. Okay.
So actually, sodium hydroxide and calcium hydroxide are about the same. Big increase in pH. You're going to see in a second, though, why not a lot of people actually use the sodium hydroxide. But man, it begs the question whether or not we should explore this even more. But vast majority of people using carbonate, and the bicarbonate ones have almost no effect on pH at all, other than maintaining alkalinity. Which of these is the safest if you dose by hand? Like, there's danger, in dosing chemicals. Whether you believe it or not, there is danger. Okay. Stuff could splash in your eye, it could splash on your pets, it can splash on your kids, it could burn your hand, it could do all kinds of different things. Okay, so is it sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, sodium hydroxide, or all the same?
I have to go in the opposite order. I'm assuming bicarb because of the limited pH impact is the least risky.
Least risky, which is the safest, okay? And the community would agree. That is the safest, right?
Okay, so we agree. Are we right?
Yes, you're correct.
Perfect.
Okay, so sodium bicarbonate has very little effect on the pH. It's basically baking soda. I mean, you eat the stuff, man.
Sure.
It is going to have very little effect. I think even isn't Tums? Maybe that's sodium carbonate actually.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know, but some antacids are probably based on this. Maybe what's the drop fizz one? I don't know.
I can think of the rest of the song, but I can't think of the product.
In any case, very safe. Sodium carbonate, which is soda ash, the pH will be higher. I don't know. I've gotten stuff on my hands, but I wouldn't get it in an eyeball or anything like that.
No.
But not all that safe. Sodium hydroxide, which is lye, unsafe.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if you go and buy lye from the hardware store, all of them, I think I'll probably by law have a big old skull and crossbones on the front, man, super danger, danger word, man, corrosive. Shows a picture of a hand getting eaten by it. It's scary, right?
Right.
If you put that on the front of a reefing product, would it sell?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, you know what? I don't know if it really. I'm not gonna. Part of me wants to test this, but the sane part does not. If you've ever watched Fight Club, it kisses his hand, pours lye on it, man. That's what that is. The burning, man. Go to your safe place.
Right.
I don't know if it's really that bad or not, but I don't want to find out. Right. Okay. So that is why you don't see sodium hydroxide, even though the pH, man, is benefit. Certainly we'd never see this in bulk. You see this as a DIY thing. In the DIY community, people are, mixing those things together. People have asked us to bring in pharmaceutical quality lye, and I refuse. People trust me to look out for their pets, themselves, and their safety. And the reality is people don't know how to use these things,
right.
Especially around their pets. What if you spill on the floor and you're kid had wet hands and walked through it or something,
sure.
Man? Do you know that the proper procedure of, is it acid that goes to water or water to acid? Do you know that you should be wearing eye goggles and stuff for this?
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to be required to wear eye goggles and protective gear.
How many blind people you want to be responsible for? And I don't care if it's their fault or not.
Oh, that's an easy zero.
Zero, man. That's the reason why. Okay, so and the difference there with calcium hydroxide is it's way more dilute. So the concentration of the calcium hydroxide, the Kalkwasser, is way more dilute, and that's probably why it's different there. Is the DIY sodium hydroxide version too risky for your household? Now just take your own skill set and willingness in there, and there's a right answer, because you can buy lye at the hardware store, and use it safely. It's not like a bomb.
Yeah, it's used for pickling, I think.
Well, I think picoline lime. I think lions use that.
Yeah.
Some people use calcium hydroxide too for that.
Okay.
Picoline lime.
Okay.
But it's used for a variety of things. You can use it safely. You can clearing out all of the stuff out of your toilet lines. You know, it's that acidic.
Well,
You can eat through metal.
multi
You know.
use.
Yeah.
I will say that, so I'm super interested in the answer from the community. I know for myself, it's a no. Like to me, this is something that, like I'll spend money on monitoring and things to make sure that like while I'm away, the ecosystem is going as it should. But I don't like anything that adds additional risk for little to no value. Is just, for me, it's a no.
It's been no for me too. I like my eyeballs, and this is one area where I will sacrifice the health of the animals in favor of the health of the household. But it's not true because I can just solve the pH in other ways.
Right.
I don't just go after a different angle. Okay, and so in here, is it too risky? We're going to say yes, and 62% to 38.
It's closer than I thought it was going to be.
Okay, so here's the reality though: is there's a lot of smart people watching, and they know what they're capable of, and they've done these like they've probably had chemistry classes and stuff before, and they know the behavior. They're willing to wear the glasses and stuff. So it's an interesting question.
And again, no right or wrong, just wrong for me.
Okay, if somebody made it safe, would you use a commercially available sodium hydroxide option? Okay, and by safe, like I don't know their exact words of safe here, but like a couple of things come to mind for me, right? What if it wasn't powder, so you didn't have to mix it, right? And it was actually already in solution, and it came with like a little top on the thing that I just plugged my tube into,
Sure.
and so I'm never exposed to this stuff, right? Just crack a seal, you know, put the tube on the top. The chances of it getting in my eyes are like zero now. The chances of it getting on the floor and my like kids or pets falling through it are like zero, or as close to zero as I can think of. Would you use that option now, knowing what's inside of it? And it may actually have to have skull and crossbones and corrosive stuff on it, just like the stuff from the hardware store. Would you use it?
I think for me, like the putting on the goggles, that takes away from the enjoyment, right? Like this serene aquarium, I got to put on goggles and glasses so it'll burn my eyes out. I think in this, so if it was like prepackaged and all I got to do is put it on and there's limited risk, sure, I would use it.
Okay, so this is one of those things where like, I mean, there's so many people out there, and like I don't know, they're gonna have to be a mega overload of yes here for any of the manufacturers to go and take this risk.
Because then they have to risk it making it.
Yeah, there's a reason, like for instance, you don't see like a ton of really great heaters out there. That's because heaters are like a insurance risk. Like nobody wants to tackle that. Only the brave few,
Sure.
you know? And so like, you just don't see like investment into this area. This area too, man, there could be some dangers. But like they haven't heard from the community, if you made this, I would buy it, right? And so the question, like, I hate the idea of mixing powder and water. Okay, and this is from somebody who like the foundation of bulk resupply is mixing powder and water because shipping water around is a waste of time, a waste of money. Okay, like on everybody's front. Okay, but in this case, there's a really logical reason to have it mixed that way, safety, and then make it unique, innovative packaging that just has very low risk. So, in that case, what was your answer?
Mine was yes. I'm curious if you would change.
Okay, so if it would you commercially, you would use it. It did not, my vote didn't go through for some reason. The answer here was 54% yes.
Okay, so that's
still
pretty
50-50.
Yeah.
Okay, my answer would be I would use a refugium first, because I'm going to use it anyway. Just suck out all the carbon dioxide at night.
Sure.
Right? I would use soda ash. I might use the CO2 media too, right? And then if nothing else worked, and I felt like this was safe, and I knew that my wife wasn't going to kill me.
We just have to hide it. You'd have to hide it.
No, that doesn't work for me. I think I would. As a single, if I was a single male, I would use this.
Okay.
I feel confident that I would be able to use this safely, and I like the benefits of it as a single male.
Okay. So the key is there's too many other good options.
You don't need the male, by the way. Single. If I just didn't have kids.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. If I just I'm just thinking about the 2, 4, and 7-year-olds I have, and the stuff they get into, man.
So that's the point, because your wife is probably not going to go dig in your aquarium stand and be like, "What is this sodium hydroxide?" But your kids will, and not tell you about it, and then get into it, because kids get into everything.
I definitely I'd lock it. I'd have to lock it or something. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna give a limited yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which of these will always increase pH? 100 out of 100 people, if you did this, would increase the pH.
Okay.
Right. A skimmer, adding a skimmer to your tank. Fresh air, or adding fresh air to your skimmer. In this case, would be both. A refugium, or none of the above.
I don't want to get tricked by the all of the above question again. I was leaning towards that because always is a tough term, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like a refugium, I would say consistently does, right? Like if you allow fresh air, it's still dependent on the CO2 levels in that fresh air. I'm going with refugium.
What do you think the community says? Refugium was amongst the bottom answers, right? Okay, the refugium is the correct answer.
It is.
Okay, now I'll explain why. Okay, so good job. You did the good math in there. Okay. So protein skimmer will aerate the water. It'll promote gas exchange. But if you had high CO2 in the room, it's actually going to add.
Yeah, it's just the same thing.
Yeah, it's not going to help any, right? If you happen to have high CO2, like a lot of life and breathers in the tank and stuff, but low CO2 in the room, the skimmer would actually have the reverse. It would actually get the CO2, it would make a gas exchange. Okay, fresh air will increase the pH, but it's totally dependent on how much carbon dioxide's in that air.
Yeah, are you in the country? Are you in the city?
Yeah, well, it really kind of depends, man. And how long do you keep the fresh air, there? The word always is a vast majority of the cases, fresh air would actually increase it, but not always. But a refugium will always increase the pH, always, because the nature of it is its photosynthesis, man. It is sucking up carbon dioxide to create glucose and glycerol. It is sucking up carbon dioxide as part of the photosynthetic process. It will pull out carbon dioxide out of the water, which means there'll be less carbonic acid in the tank. So the correct answer here is the refugium.
And that feels good.
We'll always do it in every case.
All right.
What is the best way to find out if high CO2 in your house is your issue? A CO2 tester, CO2 scrubber media, open the window for 12 hours, or run a skimmer line outside?
Okay. Best way to be, because I don't want to spend any money on it, if I'm going to be testing it, is to open the window and wait for 12 hours. Okay. That's what I'm doing.
All right. Let's see what the community thinks. Okay. They think 48% said open the window for 12 hours. It's fluctuating a little bit, 44%. CO2 tester. I am with you. The best way is not wasting a ton of money to find out the result here. And so high CO2 in your house, 90+% of the time, I can open up the window for 12 hours. It might not even be 12 hours, but what I'm trying to get at here is don't open it for 15 minutes and expect it to work.
Right.
So open it up for 12 hours is the cheapest possible way to find out if this is your problem, right?
So if it is, I don't mind spending the money to correct it. But I'm not going to spend money before I know it is.
Okay, best way, open up the window for 12 hours. If you still really believe this might be the case, then go buy a CO2 tester, right? If you still actually, go buy the CO2 scrubber media, because that's really inexpensive, right? And that still doesn't work, CO2 tester. But I haven't ever done this before. I don't even think it's that expensive. But using the Apex, you can go get a CO2 monitor for your room and run it through one of the ports on the Apex. I've never done this before.
Okay.
I want to say it's the advanced ADV or something.
I've actually never heard of this.
Yeah, so Thomas does it. at his house. So somebody might be able to chime in and say what module it is and where you might get this. But it's like, go to places like McMaster Car or whatever. It's just like this, CO2 module, and you can measure the CO2 in your household.
Okay.
Which, like for that story I told you earlier, like would have detected the after party.
Right.
The 200 people in the room. Oh. Like I've been thinking about that module. Like when my kids get older, I should install this. Like when I'm away.
There you go. I know.
Too many people are at the house.
Right.
Why is calcium hydroxide, Kalkwasser, not the most popular additive? Okay, and I want to tell you why it should be. So it raises the pH the most of any of these additives per DKH added, right? It adds calcium, it adds alkalinity. It's one product. It's really, really cheap, and it doesn't add any sodium chloride, so it doesn't have any effect on your pH. You can get it in a pharmaceutical grade quality, and it's self-purifying through its high pH. Even whatever it might be in there, it would settle out. Win, 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 win.
Yep.
Why is it not the most popular? Solves almost all the challenges. Okay, so the answers are: requires a giant container, reefers like new things, controlled dose hasn't been adopted, all of these.
The containers throw me off from choosing all of these, but so like controlled dosing hasn't really been adopted. I think majority of reefers like new things and test new things. So giant container, I would say only because like there's the point of no return. You can only add so much to the container size. So I will stick with all of these.
Okay, all of these is your answer, and the community would also agree with all of these, right? And that is the correct answer. There's other reasons too, but requires a giant container is probably the number one. Meaning, for most people, I can get a gallon of 2-part and it will last like a month. Like I don't have to change this out very often. With Kalkwasser, I need like a 10-gallon container, and I might be changing this like once a week or even more often. So instead of having 1 gallon that lasts a month, 10 gallons that last a week.
Right.
Is it like I don't got space underneath my tank this?
Right.
Right. There's like other solutions that you could work around it, but it adds complexity and cost and stuff. So that's probably one of the main reasons. Another reason is I can't get around this. Reefers don't like new things. Or like new things.
Yep.
Right. Like the vast majority of reefers don't want to use what their grandpa used.
Yeah, I mean, I just like testing.
Okay, there's obviously people out there raising their hand right now. They're like, no, I want to use my grandpa music because it works. And you would be right in this case, But like, it's just true. Like, even when I have these conversations with people that I look to, as my peers and mentors, and they're like, why do people use it? And they're like, why would they use that? And then I explain, well, because of pH. Well, because calcium and alkalinity, it's pure. Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't have sodium chloride. I like all these things, and they're like, "Yeah, you're right, man. People probably should use that."
Yeah, there you go.
And I was like, not even in the book of consideration because it's so old,
right?
Yeah. Okay, this is one of the things that I will tell you though. I've talked to a lot of people, and what a lot of different people will say is tanks that use Kalkwasser grow more coralline algae.
I've heard that before actually.
Over and over and over, I hear that. I heard it from Worldwide. I've seen it, and I originally kind of tied it to there must be something magical about that calcium hydroxide. I actually think it's the opposite. It's corals or tanks that have higher pHs grow more coralline algae.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, you see it it was there, and as the pH goes down, it slowly dissipates. For instance, we were running my tank on calcium hydroxide at my house, so I don't have problems with CO2. And that thing was just riddled. And everybody's like, how did you grow so much coralline algae? Why is it covering every available surface in your tank, man? I've never seen it even cover the dark areas and stuff.
Okay.
Right? And then I brought it here, and slowly, month by month, it kind of dwindles away.
Oh, okay.
But the pH here is so much lower because I got 100 people breathing here.
Right.
And so I don't think it's the additive. I think it's just the end result of that additive. It raises the pH more. Now that's a belief structure,
Sounds plausible though.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this heavy plausible.
Sure.
So there you go. Number 18, true or false? Mixing two great solutions has a higher failure rate than one good solution. So like lots of people will take multiple different calcium and alkalinity solutions and mix them together to make the perfect solution. Okay, but does it have a higher failure rate than just picking one less than perfect but still good solution?
I would say that's true. Doubling the chance of potential failure.
Okay,
Keep it
so
simple.
true, and 81% would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised that everybody would get this one right. But here's the thing: is like you'll see a lot of people like really trying to overthink this. I've done it too. So like, okay, I'm going to use kalkwasser until I can't possibly use kalkwasser anymore. Then I'm going to use a 2-part on top of it, or add a calcium retro, or add calcium formate, or whatever it might be into the mix. And I was just like, I really want to like use all these different things to get all the different benefits.
Right.
Okay, it's true that if you did all those things perfectly, that you would get a better result. But that means that you're going to do all those things perfectly forever.
Juggling it. Right.
Okay, so basically you've got a theoretical benefit tied to an almost certainty that you're going to screw this up someday.
Right.
You know,
And I'm a tinker too, and I still like try to keep it as simple as possible.
so it's like it's a balancing that like, hey, can I get a better result today? But I'm putting the future at risk because I'm adding failure points into the mix.
Right.
Or should I just get a good result today and not add those failure points and complexities?
Right.
Okay, so there's a debate to be had in there. I'm sure it's been happening in people's minds as we say it out loud. But for me, picking one good solution just has a higher percentage rate of success than multiple solutions.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, true or false? The price of 2-part indicates the quality of materials used. So the price of the 2-part that I buy indicates the quality of the materials used. Mostly true, mostly false.
So I'm thinking about the industry and all the brands in the industry. I think I'd have to go with mostly false. It is pretty typical. You get what you pay for. But in this case, for 2-part, I'd give this mostly false.
And let's
There's
hit
also
it.
DIY options.
Oh, I'm surprised. Mostly true is 34%. Mostly false at 70 would be my experience is the correct answer here.
Right.
I'll give you a couple of different pulses on this. One, increased costs can be that person got great packaging and just wants to make more.
Sure.
Right. It can also be it came from Europe, which means it just passed through like another set of hands and like like had to take a boat ride over here.
Right.
It can mean like a whole variety of things. Now I will say that the word "mostly" in here is because it would be impossible, basically, for it to be. Not all of it, way impossible. It'd be very difficult for it to be the best available solution and the cheapest at the same time, right?
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
It's totally possible to be the most expensive and the worst.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the inverse. Okay, I will tell you when we sent out all the additives for the ICP MS testing, and if I recall, it was something like $2,000 to $4,000 for each one of these tests. Like get it down to the MS level.
Okay.
Right? Okay, the most expensive option by far was the worst.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the most expensive option by far had the most impurities, copper, heavy metals, zinc, all kinds of stuff in it, right?
Okay.
Like you can debate all day long if those things are poisons or not or whatever you want or not. Like I would just say if they were equal priced, man, I would choose the one that didn't have the heavy metals and stuff in it.
Yeah, why would I pay more for potential risk?
Lead or whatever.
Right.
Okay, but I certainly wouldn't pay 5 times as much for that
Right.
if I knew.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely not.
The one exception, I guess, in here is, and now this feels very self-serving, but I'm going to say it anyway. The BRS Pharma stuff. The BRS Pharma stuff, because we tested it, we shared the results with you, you could still get cheaper, because you could go like DIY stuff, so it's not the absolute cheap, but from a commercial stuff that is designed and checked against the standard for aquarium use, we largely perform the best and the cheapest, with the one exception of, I think, the magnesium from Brightwell.
Right.
So, man, you really want to believe that when you're buying the most expensive thing, you're always getting the best, but not always. sometimes you can actually just see it. And like, I mean, when you mix the stuff up and it's like dirty brown, okay, I'm not going to tell you that the dirty brown is poison because nobody really knows what the dirty brown is, other than a lot of times it's from rusty materials.
Right.
You know, it's like from industrial lines, you know.
While it's being produced.
Yeah. And so, but I will tell you that all of the ones that visually look the dirtiest brown perform the worst in our MS testing.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
Sure.
there was a tie.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well, I don't care if it's salt or two-part or whatever I'm mixing up. I don't really want it to be dirty brown.
no,
Right.
no, I don't know what's in it, but there's other options.
Well, no matter how much I'm putting it into the water that I try to maintain as clear as possible. It's a little counterproductive.
Well, I would add a little bit of dirty brown every day.
Right.
I don't know. Why does high phosphate reduce coral growth? Creates magnesium carbonate, poisons the calcium carbonate. A and B are true. Fake news.
Oh, man. So this one, honestly, I'm not quite sure. I'm going to stick to my guns on these all of the aboves and say fake news.
Okay. Fake news is your option, which is 20% of the people out there. Both A and B are true, are like 67%. They would be correct.
All right.
Okay. So this one is an interesting one because it's like every scientist knows that what happens with the magnesium is if the phosphate will work its way into the calcium carbonate structure, it will poison the surface, prevent extra magnesium from going into it. Actually, it's actually just that one. Everybody knows that to be true. Now, there's a little bit of fake news in here as to nobody really knows at the level where that happens to a meaningful point. There's a little bit of research, a little bit of science on it. But like recently I went and read an article and conversation was happening on Reef about it. And basically people had found that the corals didn't really grow all that much slower if you had like a phosphate of 0.1, which is 3 times higher than 0.3.
Right.
Right. Okay, and that was like kind of like used as an excuse to phosphate doesn't matter. Like, and that's like the way that it was taken is because it doesn't matter at 0.1. But what about at 0.2 or 1 or 2 parts per million, which is like so much higher, right? So I would agree at 0.3, and I don't even really know if that's anybody's goal anymore. But at 0.1, I don't really care. I'm not shooting for that anymore. I can't maintain 0.3 consistently. And even if my test kit was saying that, I'd question it.
Yeah, I think, 10, 15 years ago, it was like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you want 0.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, 0.03, keep a little bit in there.
If I had to shoot for a number, it'd be around 0.1, which is like 3 times that. But like, I don't need to starve out the algae, which is where 0.3 really comes from. Sure. Because the zooxanthella's algae, and I don't want to starve that out.
Right.
But like, yeah, I'm not really sure, man. Like, it isn't the phosphate poisoning the surface and growing the coral. Nobody knows exactly how much it will do that, but it's definitely happening. Every scientist will tell you that is the science behind it.
Sure.
We don't know the point, and when you get in this conversation, the point shouldn't be yes or no. It should be how much at what level and increasing likelihood.
Right. How much does it matter? How much does it actually affect?
For me, it's mostly I don't want to feed pest growth and stuff, so I'm just going to do it for that reason. How well does the hobby understand coral skeletal production needs of our corals? Denial, not worth learning, it just happens. Learning, but applying incorrectly. This comes to mind like what elements are the right elements, does pH matter, that stuff. I think we got 80% of this down or mastered. Everyone is doing this instinctually correct, and almost everybody is just like killing it. We couldn't really even do much better.
Yeah, I think my answer is the same as the last one's learning but applying it correctly. And maybe even less, though, than the other 2 topics.
Oh, really?
I think this one's a little less understood.
Okay, I'm going to give you that. I'm going to go the other direction.
Okay.
Okay, those 68%? I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I've been talking about pH for so long. Maybe that's why.
Maybe.
It's like so ingrained in my conversations that I have with everybody. I just feel like maybe it's getting around. I thought that it was somewhere in between learning and applying correctly, and I think we got 80% of this down because, like, we've really since back in 8 years ago. Part of the reason that 52 weeks of reefing was so successful is people literally didn't know how to do 2-part, right? Like,
Sure.
like you went in there and the store person said, here's some turbo calcium, add a teaspoon every other Thursday, and a Christmas double because, it's a holiday.
Yep. Actually, I remember doing that. I would add
Uh,
dry teaspoons to my sump.
Yeah, it was just like it isn't what we do today.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
So we made such major gains. That's maybe what I thought, but the pH thing is definitely not embraced. And like, it is definitely not embraced as we're harming the biology of the animal. It's only embraced as we can do better, which I think is the wrong way to look at it. But I don't know. 63% actually agreed with you. Learning but applying incorrectly is the way that the community sees it.
All right.
Next Friday, Reef Quiz number 4, water flow and the driver of biology. And then we kick off 52S2 coming Friday, August 18th.